All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your attendance tonight at tonight's school board meeting. The policy and practices of the WG School Board is to encourage discussion by citizens of subjects related to the management of the school district at these board meetings. The board has provided specific time on the agenda as part of listening to public communication, delegations, and petitions. We just politely ask that audience participation be limited specifically to the portion of the agenda titled Communication from the Public, or unless invited to participate by the board. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ashley Brandt?
Yes.
David Elliott?
Yes.
Troy Jansen?
Yes.
Sam Behrens?
Sam?
Yes.
Tim Bogardus?
Yes.
We'll try and talk loud so you can hear us, Sam. For those in the room and watching online, Sam is attending virtually via the phone. Any changes to the agenda as presented?
Nope.
I move the Woodward-Granger Board of Education approve the agenda for a special meeting Monday, August 3rd, 2020 as presented. Second.
Motion by Troy, seconded by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, at this time, we would like to invite any members of the audience to come forward with items of interest or concern. When you come up, please begin by stating your name, and it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that we could keep the meeting moving in a timely fashion and allow others to speak.
Kendra.
Kendra, hang on really quick, Kendra. I just want Sam to be able to hear you.
Okay.
So, I don't know, will this move this far, do you think? Okay.
I'm Kendra Spolstra, co-president of the Woodward-Granger Education Association. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an update. So first of all, we have been helping out with our summer meals over the past few weeks, and we've seen an increase in the demand for those. So I just really wanted to make sure to thank our volunteers, Granger Methodist Church, the Stonebridge Church, and then our district for the help with making that a success this summer. Also, just wanted to remind the board and our public about the recommendations from Woodward-Granger Education Association from a couple of weeks ago at our last board meeting. So number one, that teachers and support staff be included in the future planning related to our district's return to learn and mitigation plans, which it sounds like all of our BLTs or teachers have had input on those now. We also want to make sure that we work together with district leadership to add any accommodations or modifications to the current staff handbook, which is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Face coverings will be required for all students and staff members unless not recommended by a doctor or the AAP, which we have talked about a couple weeks ago. The hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, and PPE, we've also made some strides in that to make sure that that's provided for all staff and students. And then also that the district and school board guarantee that all coaches and support staff will be paid. Again, we've made good strides with all of that. So it's really nice to see that progress even over the last couple of weeks that we've been able to make some good headway with that as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else?
Nope.
Kendra, do you know roughly how big the increase in summer meals has been recently?
So I've been helping out with meals in Woodward the first couple of weeks that I started. So in June, we had around 10 to 15. The last couple of times I've completely cleared out my car, so it's been 20 there. I know they had an increase in Granger of 11, and they were handing out like single ones before then. So we're seeing almost double the amount that we had before overall from the start. So yeah, it's been really picking up the last couple of weeks.
Do we attribute that to anything in particular, or just, do we know?
I don't think so. I think some of it is just, from what I understand is in the spring, I think there was a very regular crowd coming in. I think we've kind of seen maybe people are leaving or getting their kind of those services elsewhere. So I think it's kind of just hit and miss sometimes with that. Also weather, I mean, the first time I did it was pouring rain, so it was super great. Now today was beautiful. So, you know, it just kind of, I think that obviously can affect that too. So,
Okay.
yeah, but they've had to pick up a little more regularly and go to the food bank to get those supplies. So
Got it.
it's definitely been utilized, which is obviously what we wanted to make sure that that was happening.
Good.
And we're providing that. So.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for providing that.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no one else, we will move on. here to the discussion agenda, and let's start at the return to learn plan.
You bet. So I'll kind of tee the ball up a little bit. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this plan in the last couple of weeks. What an easy ask, from the WGA and folks to say, can we as teachers be part of this? And so I'm glad to hear that that's happening with the BLTs and at the building level. I call this a heavy lift.
Herculean?
Herculean. Couldn't get that word out. Just a big lift.
Yeah.
And not only do we need the staff and the administration and the school board, but we also need the parents. So this is going to be kind of my plea for help a little bit when I really think about the partnership that we need to have with parents. For instance, we were talking a little bit today about just the routines that we can start teaching our kids and prepare them for what school is going to look like, because it is going to look different, and we want to prepare them for that. And as I think about imagining what school can look like, starting from that bus ride, and so I'm going to make that ask again. Here's how we can help. Here's how parents can help us. One, how we behave in the next 3 weeks. I mean, kind of the decisions that we make in the next 3 weeks, and how we interact in the community, whether as we go out in the public and isolate when you're sick and all those kinds of things, I think are really important for families. When we get on the buses, if families that can bring their children to school, if they would bring their children to school, we'll work with the Department of Ed, and they're okay and comfortable with students wearing masks 2 to a seat. We have some bus routes that are more than 2 to a seat. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be asking for this partnership. We're going to be making asks of the parents and the community and working together, just like what we're doing with the meals. The sense of community spirit that has developed from that, I think we can kind of create that same thing during this, as they call it, unprecedented time. So, with that, I'd like to start at the elementary level, and they've been doing a deeper dive, if you will, with some of the mitigation strategies that I shared with you 2 weeks ago, and kind of talk a little bit about what school will look like for the students once they arrive on site. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and any reps that he brought with him tonight to talk about elementary. ELC.
Can I have you come up here so you're close to the phone?
Absolutely. That'll be just fine.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, in fact, it's going to be your camera, so is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Today, nobody's ever accused me of being quiet, so I have a feeling you're going to hear me just fine. Today was our first BLT meeting that we did have since the end of June to just try to kickstart and get things going. Kendra and a few of the other teachers have put together a document. It grew to 8 pages in length of what ifs and questions about what we can do to get the year jump started the right way. So we started today at 1 o'clock to attack that 8-page document and to talk about what school is going to look like. But before that, I've got to get kudos to my 5 summer school teachers and my instructional coaches, because summer school started today. I was here this morning to help our kids that are riding a bus to summer school get on, make sure that everybody got the memo, and there's only 9 kids riding the bus this morning for back to school, but they all showed up, all had a mask on, all got up on the bus like they were supposed to, and you could just see that they were excited to get back to school. There was nobody kicking and screaming getting onto the bus. They jumped at the opportunity. There were no tears today when they came through the elementary school, so we were very excited about that. We had about 30 of our 35 kids show up today for summer school. It was in the cafeteria. The gals, it's a new model this year to where it was stations that the kids, technology was involved with a lot of it. Everybody was masked up when appropriate, and then when they could socially distance themselves and still perform a common sense request, then in order to see. It's kind of hard to say to a little person, hey, I need to see your tongue between your teeth when you're doing the sound if they're behind a mask. You can't see it. So again, common sense and where it was applicable is what we applied today. So it was a very successful 3 hours this morning, and then everybody got on the bus at 11:30 and headed back here to Woodward. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be every morning from here on out, just in case you'd like to come by and see it in action. So moving forward to today's 1 o'clock conversation, lots of challenges that were thrown out there, just about crowd control, off the bus, back on the bus in the afternoon, just the daily routines of what is going to go on and what it's going to look like. Will we use lockers? Will we not use lockers? I think we are going to choose to use the lockers for the kids. Our kids only visit those lockers in the morning and in the afternoon, not every 45, 47 minutes like middle school, high school age kids are. And so that's the BLT group decided that today with cleaning opportunities in between those touch times for our custodial staff to take out the lockers if need be. The biggest takeaway from today's meeting is that we've done a quick assessment of our classrooms and how big they aren't when you start talking about 20 to 25 little people. And so that whole cohort model that we talked about and that Dallas County talked about last meeting about making sure that kids are in like a group of 4 or 5 pretty much throughout the day. Pretty much throughout the day. If I want to pick on Mrs. Smith's class because she's going to have around 24 kids in that class. So there'll be cohorts of groups of about 5 to 6 kids in each cohort. That'll help us with our contact tracing. Nurse Alex was involved with the meeting today as well, so that we're going to be able to follow those kids. The teachers will be doing the movement, the kids won't, type of a thing, because we do have certain grade levels that in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade where the teachers teach writing, one teaches science, one teaches social studies. So rather than the kids moving to those classrooms, the teachers are going to move to those classrooms. We're mitigating the opportunity for the kids to move as much and keep them within their 4 walls of their educational. I mean, we're following the guidance that Dallas County kind of laid before us. Probably going to take on that same model when it comes to like lunch and things like that. They're going to get to know their little people. Now, we've got to get out of jail free card that if day 1 of school we realize very quickly that 4 or 5 little people, they probably not the best combination, that we will raise our hand and say, yeah, we need to switch these, which we know some of those little people from the neighborhood probably shouldn't be sitting right by each other in classroom. So wouldn't be productive pre or post pandemic. Yeah. So we're going to make sure that cohort model, because all of my grade levels have desks except for kindergarten and preschool. They have tables, and so that lends itself to that cohort model. Now, our biggest challenge today was we really like to bring them all up and do carpet time or my morning meeting or things like that. So the wheels are spinning, and we're going to come back to that next Monday as to how we can safely accomplish that and still look for opportunities to still maintain those types of things, because the group, what I heard the most today was that they do not want it to be a robot type experience when they come back to school in August. We know what our parameters are, and we're going to make sure that we find opportunities. There's going to be the mask breaks like what we talked about a couple weeks ago and things like that. I think we have to we're going to be overly cautious at the beginning and loosen up as we see it play out when you get 300 kids in a building and what that looks like. But we're going to have time in between specials to make sure that we're not cross-trafficking kids in the hallway. We're keeping them within their 4 walls, limiting the amount of time that and any time that they have to bathroom. I think masks are going to, obviously, to make sure that those. And the biggest challenge that I've received from some parents or question is, okay, what about this with masks and things like that? So I just think through communication with our parents, what the expectation is. I've asked them on my Friday morning announcements to work with us. Just like Dr. Adams has said, there's not going to be discussion about masks, no masks, things like that. You pass the policy, we're wearing masks. Simple as that. And so just getting that routine, I've asked the parents about driving kids to school if you have the opportunity to do that. I think our community is going to step up. I'm really, really confident in that happening. So I think our day, it's going to look different. But we're working on that. So we've got a standing 2-hour-long meeting at a minimum every Monday leading up to the school in case anything changes in terms of.
That doesn't happen.
It might have just a couple of times.
Yeah.
So we've got that going. I really don't think, we did discuss back to school night. You guys have been at our back to school night. It's just not something that we can do with that model. So the teachers, that was another thing that came away from today's meeting. Back to school night is going to be a virtual thing. Grade levels are going to get together and do like a little informational video so that the kids and parents can see their faces, can see the classrooms, and then there'll be a Google slideshow that's going to go along with that so that the parents, hopefully any questions that most of our teachers have done this for enough years that they can anticipate what questions might come. And so that'll be part of the Google slide with some links in there as well. I think it's a great opportunity because you can't get all those questions out at back to school night. Hopefully a lot of those answers that you was like, oh, I forgot to ask that, will be right in that slideshow. So I think that will be coming out for anybody watching, will be coming out that Thursday night before school starts, 18th, I think the 20th. So that's when our back to school night was going to be anyway. So that night, that afternoon by 5 o'clock, you'll see a link and we'll shoot it out to everybody so that they can see what back to school night looks like at the ELC in the elementary. Still have not crossed the bridge of figuring out how to get all of the school supplies to us without allowing visitors in there. So our creative minds are going to be working on that next week. And then we'll work on class lists and things like that when we know who has selected which model. We know who's coming physically on the 24th. So that takes care of that. Ladies, anything else that came out of that meeting today? No, I don't really. Yeah, I think so too. Any questions that you guys
Are
have?
the lockers single kid or double kid?
Right now, we have enough because it wasn't that way at the ELC last year because we had a large number of first graders. Those kids are coming up to the elementary this year. So we think, counting kids right now, as of 6:30 tonight, that we have enough for every kid. Our biggest challenge right now is going to be in Miss Leuenberger's class because she has morning preschoolers and then a whole new set of afternoon preschoolers. So I think the decision is going to have to be made. Do just the AM kids get the locker and the PM kids get a space?
Do we bring in like a temporary locker?
I don't, then we start messing with fire codes and things like that with space in the hallway and little people and things like that. I think anything's on the table right now. We want to wait till we get through August 7th to see who's coming, and then I think we'll probably problem solve and see where we can go from there. But as of right now, it's penciling out right now that every kid will have their own locker.
I assume they're assigned.
They will be assigned, and that was an item for discussion today too. Are we going to do?
Cohort.
That's exactly what we came that way, and we're also that was a little bit of a sticking point for when the kids get off the bus in the morning, because usually they get off the bus, go right to their locker, then into their classroom. I think what they're going to do this year, I'll have enough people out there to control the group that comes in. They're going to go directly to their classrooms, and then the teachers are going to release them by their cohort to go out to their locker. I think they're all trying to mitigate. We have some kids that like to wander the building and go see their favorite teachers and things like that, and they spend 30 minutes in the morning wandering the building. Well, that can't happen this year, and if they're watching, they know who they are. So I think those types of things are just procedures that we're going to work through as a BLT and as a team, and just figure out what we can do to help those kids stay focused to their destination.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about preschool home visits? Are they doing those?
Virtual.
Virtual.
They are going to be done virtually. So expect from the preschool teachers, again, when we know the lists that are final, they're working through those this week. We had one of our teachers get married on Friday, so we wanted to give her a little bit of a honeymoon break from thinking about school.
Sure.
And so then they're charged with having that all done by this Friday, so that way we can get communicated out to those parents virtually.
So this might be early, Matt, but so 2 weeks ago, we talked a little bit about personnel implications. We did some seasonal, if you recall. We approved some seasonal custodial support. Again, maybe premature, but are you seeing any personnel needs that are coming out as you kind of make these plans?
Not yet. Not yet. I think we'll be upfront with you when and if we need that. I know Nurse Alex has expressed just being in two buildings and with the health needs that might present themselves at any given time, that could put a little bit of a stress on her along with both Brooke and Mindy, just because when Alex is in one building, the other lady is the nurse, also the secretary, also me if I'm not in the, you know what I mean? So that's the biggest need, or I guess ask as of right now, but it's not an official ask until we know exactly kind of what we're in for.
So we may need to bring something on the 17th.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about recess? Have we talked about that?
We've talked about it in hypotheticals right now.
Okay.
It all comes down to, we've got the space to say, one class or two classes, you're out. What I need to be able to control is how many kids are out there in one shot. And I know that's a concern for people. Because you see some of our daycare facilities around Iowa or whatever, it looks like just normal play for kids in and around their facilities. So today for summer school, there was a break during the time, and there was almost 30 kids out in a designated spot together. I need to know what's the acceptable number. If I can say, okay, you guys have the field, you 30 have the field, you 30 have the playground equipment. And I can do the same thing over at the ELC. You 30 have cement and that playground area, and you 30 have the field now because we've done that improvement. So it's just going to come down to what our comfortable number is to where we think kids can be safe out there as well. So I'm part of a listserv with all the elementary principals in the area. There may be a time where some of them are inside, some of them are outside. Depending on the time of the day with specials, some of the kids may be in the gym, some may be in the field, some may be in, we're gonna get them recess. Because again, the constant message today was we do not want it to be a robotic, you follow a line, you come into your classroom, face forward, don't breathe, and yeah, that's not, we're gonna try to do our best to make it a common elementary ELC day.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll get back to you when I know what my comfort level is with number of kids in a
Okay.
designated spot, because then they're still kids.
Sure.
Socially distancing for a 5-year-old.
Well, if their friend's not in their cohort, they're going to try and find their friend. in
Correct.
recess. Yeah.
That's what we said, that's what recess is gonna be for, because to be honest, no offense to you guys, if I was in a cohort with all you guys, I would wanna branch out and find some other people at
Sure.
recess.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I just
I
would.
would real fun time.
I would imagine,
Just
but
kidding.
they're gonna wanna find their buddies.
Yeah.
Or their neighborhood buddies, and that they've been socially distancing with all since March.
Their
So,
quarantines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is recess going to be masked also or not masked?
We're going to look for an opportunity for that to be a mask breaks. It's the same question that I kind of pose, and we struggle a little bit with even with PE as well. If you're expecting to be running around getting some and having this restricting your airflow, yeah, I think I'm going to lean on a lot of my peers in the elementary area around central Iowa with what they're saying, with what they're doing. I've seen the extremes already with no recesses at all at one of the school districts. That's not going to work. I've seen we're just going to turn them loose like normal. Recess, they're going to be masked up all day long, and then it's all going to come down. It's going to be one big test of what we're accepting and what we're not. And I know that's not a comfortable answer for some people, but it's realism.
Well, it seems to me that just may have to be one of those floating decisions. If you see they're spaced enough,
Yep.
they can go maskless if they're not staying away from
Right.
each other.
Right, exactly.
What's the phrase, flexibility and grace?
Flexibility and grace.
There you go.
That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm preaching every Friday. which unfortunately is still continuing.
They love it.
Yeah, something like that. Anything else?
I got a question for everybody. With no Clorox wipes out there, and I know that's on the list.
Yeah.
Do we have a plan that we're coming up with? Instead
We
of
repeat-
Clorox wipes, what are we gonna do?
Just repeat the question for Sam.
Oh, Sam, Tim's asking about Clorox wipes and their lack of availability right now. So we do have a pretty good, I don't want to say stockpile from, I don't know, do they have an expiration date on them?
I don't think
I don't think so either, you know, like a Twinkie, they last forever. We do have a pretty good, from leftovers from last year, that we've kind of been hoarding, so we're gonna try to utilize those until, because everybody wants them right now, and everybody's
Yeah.
probably got them on their back-to-school list. So that's kind of where we're at. Same with, like, on one of our sheets, that plexiglass dividers and shields and all that. It's great, but you can't find plexiglass anywhere right now. It's an impossible purchase right now. And then when you go into those salespeople that promise you the moon that they can get you that divider, it's kind of like Amazon Prime right now when you hit buy, and then it says, oh, by the way, it's going to show up October 5th through the 11th.
Yeah.
Where's my Prime? It's gone. So I think the plexiglass stuff is hard to come by right now as well. But we did order, I think Dave said 1,000 face shield, no, 1,000. 200. I was like, we're gonna get
Close,
1,000.
yeah.
Oh, the 1,000 was the thousands was the face mask that he said that we had. But we did order face shields today too because of that. While we were instructing today, that was something that right away teachers like, they can't see me when I'm asking them about phonics and things like that.
So face shields for the teachers or face shields for the kids?
For the teachers, for when teachers and associates, for when they're working with those little people that just, they have to be able to see how you're doing your enunciations and things, yeah.
Anything else, guys? Okay,
Okay, perfect, thank you.
thank you.
You know, as we're transitioning to Jake, as your hint there, you know, my words are reflection and refinement. And so when you hear they're gonna try things, I think, Dave, you're exactly right. If you create the conditions where they can stay apart, that's a great time to have a mask break. And that's through scheduling and being very deliberate about how many students you send out there. When you can't create those conditions, the masks need to be on. So I appreciate that. And I think it's just going to be really important for the BLTs, the team, the leaders in the schools, along with their principals, to be, in my opinion, on a daily basis, reflecting and refining this plan. That's what teachers do every day. And I think that's going to be really important and critical for the success that we have in our schools. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Jake.
And Lori.
And Lori.
Yeah, you gotta come on. All right, so we met, was that last Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah, it was last Monday.
Yeah, last Monday. And tomorrow is our sixth grade orientation, so we're bringing 42 sixth graders in for their middle school transition camp, we're calling it. And then we're also gonna do the other 22, I think, on August 18th. And so I'll give us a nice little test run for some of this, following all guidelines on everybody will have face coverings as well. So we had talked about a number of things, and you're probably going to hear a lot of redundancy between middle school and high school because there's very little that we can do without them. As far as, you know, we just talked pretty much all day about our schedule and a lot of the staggering times that we had talked about with the passing times. We just couldn't make that work, and the thought process was, are we going to have them group at their lockers, or are we going to have them group at the teacher's door? Because we don't have everybody traveling to the same place, so kids could be spread out amongst 3 classes possibly. So if you let out early, but I don't, and you got kids coming to me, or I got kids coming to you, they're gonna stay. So we got rid of the lockers. For the most part, we're gonna allow them to access them in the morning, and then before they leave for the bus. So basically, they're just gonna drop off any coats, anything that they need to store, and then backpacks are gonna be used throughout the day. And all the supplies will be carried through there. And we did put out Probably a longer supply list than normal because we don't want a lot of sharing of materials, and so we did ask for families to provide a few more items than normal. You know, we've always supplied the glue sticks. We're asking them to have their own glue sticks, so, you know, stuff like that. So the passing time, we didn't do that. We went to backpacks, and so hopefully not the staggered times, and then everybody will be out in the hallways at the same time, but we're really going to work hard on traffic flow of get to the right and get to the left and get moving, get to your class and get in there. Masks and mask breaks. We talked a lot about this one. I think the hardest part on this was kind of navigating the different feelings amongst your staff. I mean, you can just look around this room. We have some people who are fine being 6 feet away without a mask in one room. We have some who aren't. You know, we're going to leave a lot of that up to teachers of what is their comfort level, what's their need. Because there's a lot of different situations at homes that we're not always aware of. But we do want to try and guarantee a mask break for every kid in the morning, at lunch, and then in the afternoon. So we're going to create a schedule, teams will create a schedule of that and figure out, hey, you're going second period, I'm going third period, he's going fifth period, and so on, and then they'll change throughout the week so the same class isn't always getting that same break. And we're also going to try and open up into the hallways and outside, especially when the weather's good, as much as possible. So we're going to try and get a lot of that. I know PE's talked a lot about getting outside, band, marching band, getting outside. The nice thing with band and choir is going to spend a lot more time in the auditorium. That opens up the choir room, and then band can split, because in the morning we do have 2 band teachers, and so they'll kind of attack that to get a little bit more space. So I thought those were fairly good ideas for a tough situation. You don't see a lot of great ideas with what do you do with band and choir, you know? And so they come up with that. Also, I believe they're buying special face masks that I think have a slit in the middle, and then so they can play while still covering as much as possible. They created coverings for the openings to instruments that can go around, so it's like a face mask for the end of your trombone. So little things like that to hopefully help. What else on masks and mask breaks did we talk about?
I think that was a lot of it. We also talked a little bit about, the literacy. They have a block, and so probably 15 or so minutes a day is spent reading. Why not take the kids outside, make sure they're apart? That would be another extra time that they're being productive, learning, but they're also having that opportunity to have a bit of a break. So just simple things like that. And
also we're treating, like, hey, the kid says, I'm not going to wear my mask. We're treating it like a dress code violation. You're going to get your one warning, and then it's to the office, and we're calling mom and dad, and they're going to have to come pick you up. So we're not playing around with that. I'm not going to have that be a debate throughout the day and throughout the year. And so thank you for the support you had in really making that decision for us. So made it easy on the principal. Thank you. Face shields for teachers. We thought that a lot of it, we do want to see people's faces. So if a teacher can be spread out from them, we'd say it'd probably be fine to take the mask off, but have the face shield up. But once you get into that closer proximity, we would like to see both of those. Lunch, we worked out a way that we can use the upper and lower commons and hopefully have maximum of 5 kids at a table, and we're not going to allow kids to sit straight across from each other. So if they can be somewhat diagonal, they'll spread them out even more. That'll be the same cohort groups as we have within the classroom. That's not going to be the same for kids. It's a little bit tougher when you start moving about classrooms in the middle school. So I'm hoping I can get a kid. And we haven't sat down and done. That's going to be our first task when we get teachers here on the 18th, is they're going to sit down and make all their seating arrangements together. So hopefully Johnny's only around 6 feet, or by hopefully less than double-digit kids. If we can get a kid to be within that close of contact with, say, 6 to 8 others, I think that's much better than, say, possibly 10 to 15 to 25 others. So that's our goal there, and then they'll follow them into lunch as well. Possibly a future purchase might be more tables. We've got room for probably 2 more in there. As we grow and hopefully go back to normal someday and having everybody in one lunchroom, If you start to get classes of 80 and 90 on average, we're probably going to need more tables anyway. We average 65 kids now, and we pretty much filled everything up last year. So, study halls. When we do have study halls, we're going to use any free. Also, our associates cover our study halls, and if I have 2 who are free at the same period, we're going to take that, split it into 2 groups, and then lessen that. So that could also possibly be another use for a mass break as well. We have some extra desks, so if we have tables in classrooms, any teacher wants to trade trade tables for desks, we can do that to help that spread out and also not have that face-to-face contact. Hawk time, we made some probably substantial changes to that. It used to be very fluid, where a kid would go to Mrs. Nelson's room on Monday, Wednesday, and my room on Tuesday, Thursday, and Mr. Adams on Fridays. Now they're just going to go to the same teacher for 4 weeks straight, and then we'll switch that to get them depending on what they need in hawk time. So we did pare that down, and we are going to lose some of those opportunities, but that was the trade-off we had to make. Yeah, I think that was most of what we had talked about moving forward. So I guess, what questions do you guys have? What did we miss there?
I know we're planning to use the commons down by the big gym, so are tables being moved?
Tables are already down there.
Will you repeat the question for Sam, just to make sure you heard it?
So they talked about tables down in the commons by the high school gym, and there are already tables down there, so they're tables.
So we're just talking maybe a couple tables for the future and expand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I could probably fit 20 more kids in the lunchroom. I don't know if I could fit 30. So you're talking 65 average for 3 grades versus 80 average. You might start pushing some of that.
Could we possibly consider that a COVID cost?
Mm-hmm. Lunch tables are about $1,000 a piece, roughly. A couple.
I think we should do it.
Yeah, it'd help. It'd be nice. So, yeah.
Especially if we can use that money to do it and so take advantage.
Particularly, we're growing.
Yeah.
We're
You
growing
know we
as a
have a
school
need
district.
coming.
We'll have a need.
Yeah. For example, we graduate 48s. My 6th grade last year was 79, and your kindergarten's what? $1 million? No.
We've got 100 in second grade.
100, so that's coming.
On the specialized band masks and instrument masks, are we school going to pick that up or ask kids to pick up the cost?
I don't know that answer. Mr. Willer said they were making them, and when he said they, he meant Mrs. Anderson and himself. So I don't exactly know about that, but you can get, I saw on a Facebook group they were using, remember the old book covers, the textbook covers? They're just using those to go around, so I think that could be done fairly.
Press and seal?
Yeah. Gosh, you could probably cut this thing in half and put it on there, so.
Yeah.
What else?
Do you feel like you are adequately staffed to do everything that you're wanting to do?
As far as a teacher associate, well, we just had one resignation. I'd like to replace that. After that, from a teacher and staff, I believe so. My only concern is I think we're low on custodial. Is that correct? So,
Yeah, that's why
yeah, I
we're
think we
doing the
talked
seasonal.
about that earlier.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think as far as teachers and associates go, I feel fairly good. And a lot of that probably came from last year hiring more associates. And so we've had a chance to keep almost all of them.
Good.
I don't feel like we're stretching too thin there.
Any other questions for these two guys? Thank you, that was very thorough.
Thanks.
Okay, move on up.
Come
So you're from
on
the
up.
high school.
I think you guys are fabulous right up there. I'll just stay back and help you out as needed.
Okay.
Well, we had a BLT meeting last Monday. We had a BLT meeting again this morning, and then we had a staff meeting to kind of go over the on-site mitigation strategies. The big takeaways that we came up with were the bell schedule, is making sure that, do you shorten passing periods to 3 minutes? Do you keep them at 4? You still need to use the restroom. You need to give kids ample time to get from Class A to Class B. We don't have, I think our discipline went down as far as our tardies go when we had a longer class period or a longer passing time so kids could take care of their needs. We're going to continue to allow kids to use backpacks. Very few of our students use their lockers, maybe for a jacket, a place to put some posters or some fire-ups that they get for athletics or activities. So we're working on a bell schedule. With that bell schedule, we created 3 lunches, and it's difficult. We're working on a draft right now for our schedule and meeting the needs that the middle school would like, meeting the needs that the high school would like. It's very challenging. The high school teachers today in our meeting made it clear that they would like the intervention to be done by extending the classrooms. They felt they could do more for the students in class than providing Scott with an option. You need to come to language arts for an intervention, but you also need to come to math. Well, I like Mrs. Buck better than I like Mr. Boley, so our students would go to one over the other. So we were trying to schedule out or figure out the day. I made a draft, shared it with Mr. Moling so that he's going to share it with his staff, and we can move on from there. Spacing, desks versus tables, that was a question that some of our teachers had. A lot of our teachers have moved towards desks, and now they feel that, I've had a teacher already request that they have desks replace their tables. A lot of our teachers want tables for the collaboration, the learning. However, with this situation, they think they can space students out more with desks versus tables. We also talked about outdoor spaces, looking at getting picnic tables or something to be able to sit on in case, first period, the grass is a lot different than fifth period. And so making sure that we have some resources out there, some not only the green space, but a way to use that space. Am I missing anything, Scott?
I was just going to say, back to the bell schedule, we've already, and we've done this for years, but we've tried to, a lot of our classes for our juniors and seniors, especially our seniors, since they can kind of come and they can come later or leave early. So a lot of those senior classes don't happen first and second or seventh and eighth, so we'll have less kids in the building theoretically already with that. I know we've done that for the juniors, and as long as they maintain, as long as they're not in an eligibility list, they're able to, if they've got first hour study hall, they don't have to be here till second, or 8th hour if they can leave if they don't have a class. So we've been doing that before COVID. So I said last year, we had literally about 60 to 70 kids being able to leave before 8th hour was done. So I said that's the main thing. I said we've done that for years already.
So looking at the masks, that was a concern from our students, from our teachers. We want to make sure that everybody's wearing a mask. Our world language folks sent me a request to buy a mask that has a clear shield over the mouth. So it's a mask, but you can see their mouth moving. They thought when they were pronouncing words and specific to their teaching that they needed some of those things. J.C. Simon in Chorus, there's specifically designed face masks that protrude a little bit farther from the face so they don't catch all of the air that when kids are singing. She's going to give me that link. I tried opening it, but it was a kind of a privacy site. But I wanted to get with Mr. Churchill so I can get to that site and see how much they are. She bought one. She said, including shipping, it was around $40. So I don't know what those are. They looked, when she showed it on our Zoom meeting, it looked good, but it just literally came out a little bit. If you're familiar with hockey, when somebody breaks their jaw, they have that clear kind of shield over their mouth. It looked like that, only it was not clear. It allowed people to be able to sing a little bit better. Also, when it came to masks, we talked about amplification systems. Do we have anything set up where we can make sure that our students can hear? It is a little bit challenging to talk with one of these on. I'm pulling mine down so I can make sure that it goes onto the recording. So we looked at that. I don't know what those cost. I know we had a couple of students who had some hearing challenges before, but those were purchased with special education funds, and I don't know where they are now. So I'd like to retrieve those, and I think it would help all of our students if we have some type of voice amplification throughout all the classrooms. Anything else, Scott? A concern that came up were supplies. When we look at textbooks, we've kind of gone away from giving everybody a textbook and ordering a classroom set. How do you clean those? Do we go strictly to the online model? What if we have students that prefer an actual textbook? Well, if the next class comes in, how do you do some of those things? Talking to the librarian, she said through some of the things that she has read, books are supposed to stay a certain number of days before you use them again. Well, we can't necessarily do that in a classroom. So that was a concern, trying to investigate how we can clean our textbooks off. Cleaning and cleaning supplies, reassured the staff that we would have those things for them. Talked the importance of you can correct me, Dr. Adams, on this, the safety sheet or whatever the sheet that has all of the chemicals that we're used to cleaning. We don't want to bring things in without making sure we have record of what's on file and what we're using to clean. But we would provide those things. Another topic of discussion was the online discussion or online option. Well, what can we do for students? And that's part of the board meeting tonight. I know we discussed making sure that if students do choose the online option, what's the best way to reintegrate them into school. We talked about it this semester. I know that's on the form. So once we get that passed or established, we can start determining what our schedule might look like differently. We might need to reallocate resources. If I'm teaching 3 sections of algebra, I'll just use that as an example. We have a high number of students that want to do it online. We may look at having 2 sections of algebra with 1 section to be able to do that online. So we want to make sure if we're meeting the needs of the students, we're meeting the needs of the staff, and making sure that we're best using our resources. So that online piece will come. Mr. Chapman and I are going to meet and do a public service announcement once that is approved, so that we can share with our families what the options they have are and what they look like. If you decide that you're going to do something according to the policy, it says you're going to return it this semester, making sure people understand that, because I think sometimes people think I can choose this, well I don't like it, now I can go back. Well, we want to make sure, because if we reallocate resources and reduce a section to teach an online section because we have a high need, it would be really hard to add that student back to a class. We also talked about professional development. Over the summer, I contacted each of my teachers and asked them what they would need if we were online. We talked about engagement strategies, assessment strategies. It's hard to assess students online when they have a computer. They could maybe Google the answer. So we wanted to do those things. Equity, making sure that we are able to meet the needs of all of our students. So in working with Mrs. Duran, Mrs. Buck, Mrs. Peterson was there, and the AA staff, brainstorming about when we can meet, set up a day in pre-service to be able to discuss and learn some of those options. Some of the options for online obviously could carry over to face-to-face. So we wanted to make sure that we got the teachers what they needed. Anything else?
I think that's it.
It was about what our meeting consisted of. Any questions?
Scott, at this moment, what are our biggest class sizes looking like in the high school?
In the high school, PE is going to be a little bit bigger. Weight training is going to be a little bit bigger. I would say we've got some classes that are 23, 24, 25, but I'm really working a lot to make sure the numbers are balanced. I think most of our classes are probably about 21 and under. I said we've got a few that are over that, but more likely a lot of them are under 21 rather than over 21. So that'll of course fluctuate as we get new enrollments and kids leaving and stuff.
You said that some teachers are requesting desks. Do we need to purchase more desks? Or
I think we've got to see what's in storage. Talking to Mr. Smeltzer, in our storage area by the softball field, there are plenty of desks. So I just need to see how many we have, and then how many. As the reality of starting school becomes closer, I think some of the teachers were kind of just staring at me. You guys were on the Zoom as well, trying to let it soak in that, okay, we need to do this. I know that band The biggest concern that I had is that we increased, I mean, it's a great problem. We went up 19 kids, 74 kids in band. Working with Miss Simon, the choir's going to move to the auditorium, and band's going to use both the choir room and the band room to practice, to be able to get some distancing. Talking about going outside, do we need to line things to make sure if they need to march? Just what can we do? Because it's a good problem to have, it's just hard right now to figure out.
I know Mr. Icorn isn't here, but have we received any guidance on activities, high school level activities?
We have, and we need to meet to discuss those. Some of them are clear, some of them are recommendations. Some of the things we need to see is how it will apply to us. I know that some of the performing arts things have already been canceled for all state, and I don't want to misspeak because I want to talk to Mr. Icorn and really improve my understanding on it, but I know that we're getting guidance from our association about what we should be doing or what our best practices could be.
Both athletic activity units
Yes.
have put some things out. There's actually in your inbox, you would have the guidance on fall sports, where they kind of talk a little bit about the restrictions, if you will, that come with fall sports as it relates to practices and competitions.
And then Alan Greiner and they share a building from the Music Association, has put out some things as well.
We asked the same question of the others. Do you feel like you're appropriately staffed to meet the needs of what you're trying to do with these kiddos?
I think when we add a custodial support, I think that will help. I mean, I think I need more space than I knew staff. I mean, it would be nice to have bigger covered spaces, so that would be something that I would really enjoy. But I think that staff-wise, we have everything that we need going into it. I think the staff are ready. I think some of them are a little bit nervous, and rightly so. But I think the excitement's there.
I have mixed feelings about outdoor because we all know that's not going to last very far into the school year.
Correct.
But if you're going to have a proposal for picnic tables, do it soon.
Well, I don't know what we can borrow from the athletic areas because there are some that usually for football that are there that people congregate and eat on. Well, with the restrictions that are coming out, are we going to be allowed to have concession stands for the fall activities? If not, I don't necessarily want to purchase something that we can use or reallocate and use that money elsewhere, if that makes sense. Softball, same way. I mean, there are some picnic tables that are out there that I don't know if they're going to be used in the fall.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Mindy, did we cover everything?
Until it changes again in like 10 minutes.
I'm going to move this over here by you because I want him to pick you up.
Okay.
I think do you have anything else on this topic?
If there's any further questions. You know, I guess one of the things, just to kind of button this up, so to speak, I think we as the adults, you know, can really make or break this. I think the language that we use, we can decide, you know, as a board, as an administration, as a teaching staff, that we can do this, and or we can decide that it's going to be the most miserable experience that we can have. And I guess I would hope we choose the latter, that, you know, we're good. We can do this. We're agile. We can pivot. We can reflect, and we can refine. And I think that that patience and grace is what we're going to need all fall. And quite frankly, I need the support of the parents too, because, you know, I know I've raised 3 children of my own, and I know my words matter. You know, what I say and how I describe the situation, my kids picked up on that. So I can make it a great experience for my kids, or I could turn it into a miserable experience. Typically, it was when we were going to see the in-laws. I think is when I probably had to be the most careful. So I would
I'd love
just,
to hear that.
I would just remind everybody that we can make or break this depending on how we want to talk about it. And I'm excited for school to start. I've signed a number of school permits this last couple of weeks. And so it's been fun. The parents are like, yeah, they're going, and about shoving them out the door. And the students seem to be really excited as well. So it's fun to see the energy and excitement that comes with the fall, even though we know it's going to look different this fall.
I just realized we forgot Becca.
Well, and Becca, her situation is a little bit different. So yeah, I do want to give her an opportunity. What does Grandwood look like as it relates to the other schools? Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, that was not intentional.
That's okay. All right, so I did talk to Dr. Adams that we're still working on a few details at Grandwood from the simple fact that the special education guidance isn't completely out yet. It's continuing to come out. That was one of the last things that I feel like the Department of Education decided that they should talk about. But some of the things that we are doing at Grandwood is students and staff are going to be wearing masks just like everywhere else. I did have a parent reach out to me and just asked if their child is going to get in trouble or be sent home if they're not wearing their mask or if they choose to take it down at certain times during the day. And I just responded back to the parent letting them know that that's something that we'll continue to educate their student or their child through and work through getting used to wearing masks. We also have face shields. We've already got those. I put it on today. I'd like to make it a little bit cuter because it says face shield across the front.
You need a cute headband.
I thought maybe a bedazzling machine of some kind, I don't know. Going back to like my 90s days. We also are going to use cohorts or roster groupings. We've always had green team, gold team, gray team, and we're not going to really be able to do that anymore. Vocations, instead of students going out of the building for vocational opportunities like Habitat for Humanity, the Restore, Many Hands for Haiti, or even going to central office to do some different things, we're going to keep Voc within our building, and with that they're going to continue to stay within their cohort groups. So Voc is going to be brought to them, and they'll stay with their same staff. So that's another change with our vocation program that we're going to do. Community learning experiences are just that, they're experiences. So again, those are going to be in-house experience. So we're going to do virtual community learning experience as much as possible to be able to support their needs that way. I'm working very closely with Christy, and then I hope to meet with the BLT next week to discuss some of these different things. Special Olympics did hear back that right now they're doing all of their events virtually, at least for fall is my understanding. So our two Special Olympics coaches are still communicating pretty closely with the director and Grimes. That's all I have for Grandwood.
Do you expand a little bit on the reason for vocational not going out?
It's just one more exposure, and I've been communicating with Woodward Resource Center as well as other group homes, and so far most of those locations haven't even allowed parents or guardians onto their facilities. So opening it up for students to be able to go to school is a pretty big change for them already. Parents, I feel, from my discussions with them, are going to be more comfortable keeping their kids in one location, in one classroom, versus mixing out even more beyond what they would have been doing.
Have you had contact with any of the businesses that you've utilized in the past to see what their position is?
We have not, however, the Restore, I think, has changed some of their hours. Many Hands for Haiti, the last thing that I saw posted, I don't know that they were allowing non-staff members to come in, but our transition coordinator, Mr. Pegel, when he gets on staff, he's going to make contact with everybody.
I don't disagree with the decision, but I feel like the vocational part of your program, that's a key part.
Yep, it definitely is. We've got 3 vocational classrooms that we utilize at Grandwood. 2 of them are smaller. Those, in talking with Christy, so Christy Dunleavy, we're not going to even utilize our 2 small rooms because it's just really small. They would only fit 2 people in there, and we need to have at least a staff member with a student. The only exception to that is we've got 2 students who their program within Grandwood is that they push a cart because they enjoy cleaning, and they actually do their academic skills as they're going around Grandwood on their cleaning cart. And so they might do some touch surfaces and then stop and do a few academic activities and then move on, do a couple more touch surfaces. So their program will need to continue to stay the same, as that's been some of our de-escalation strategies actually with those students. We also have one other student who is very much routine to going into the vocational room for his voc activity. His routine will stay the same. The rest of them, we're probably going to be able to get those students to understand the difference, or actually some of them are probably going to be excited that they don't have to leave their seat. So, I mean, we've got kind of a double-edged sword with that. But then we have a larger room that we've been utilizing as a voc room, and Mr. Pagel and I talked a little bit that we would like to see it be that we replicate a larger vocational opportunity in there, so we might be able to set up a grocery store or something like that with just almost like what Melissa and Doug has, the boxes that are on shelves. We can start to do some of those kinds of things. And what we'd like to do is see one classroom in that room, like Monday, Tuesday, shut it down on Wednesday for a deep clean, then Thursday, Friday, a different classroom. So we wouldn't have different classrooms in there throughout the day. So I think that there's some things that we can do. Yeah, the mail route that we've done where we've gone into every building, I don't think that that's going to happen anymore. I have had several conversations with parents whose kids have some, they're medically fragile, or they reside with individuals who are medically fragile, more in the group home setting. And ultimately those group homes have talked a little bit about some of their policies, so.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Just one last thing before we go to the next topic. Tim, you asked a good question about, if we don't have Clorox wipes. I would just say that, just publicly, I appreciate what Dave Smeltzer has done. He got on it early, got it on it often. We've got lots of different cleaners. As I put in my Friday report, literally thousands of masks. Even today, I completed a survey from the Department of Ed where we're going to get some more masks, some more shields, some more cleaner and whatnot. So we have a tremendous amount of resources to keep staff safe with masks and shields if they elect to wear the shield, and then cleaning for sanitation. So I think we're way out front on that piece.
Okay, let's talk registration.
So with Cody here tonight, there's two things that I think he's pretty excited about. Probably the second one is C, but the first is registration. I said, we opened up online registration June 15th, and I thought this would be a great night just to kind of talk, where are we at as far as his registration. So I'm going to turn over to Cody.
Cody's pulling up the data really quick for those that are watching that.
Middle school, high school, are lockers going to be prohibited during class changes, so we keep it only at morning and afternoon?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't look at the agenda.
Can you come up closer to here, Cody, so
What's
that
that?
can you come up closer to the phone so he can hear you?
But Dave, just
I'm listening to
clarification, Dave.
Yeah.
Academic lockers, because they're gonna need to change for PE.
That wasn't my concern, it's the
Okay,
academic
that's
lockers.
I just wanna make sure that they will have access to lockers, but they'll be their PE lockers.
Sam's on the phone, so I just want to
Okay.
make sure he can hear you.
Can you hear me, Sam?
Yep, go ahead, Cody.
Okay. Just kind of looking at the dashboard right now, we have 64% that, I gotta turn this on.
hearing an echo. So we have 64% that have submitted an application. We have, let's see, 6% that have started an application, so that would put it around 70% that have picked up an application. Let me see how many new applications we actually have submitted. Looks like we have 51 new applications. Most of those would be preschool applications. Out of existing applications, let's see, it says about, that number's a little bit off. I don't know that that's accurate. It doesn't say, it says it's at 90%. I don't know if I believe that, but it could be. And then it says, so those might be the submitted. And then we've got 9% unsubmitted. So are there any specific questions you have about registration so far?
How does that feel compared to past years, beginning of August? Are we about on par or a little behind?
I would say we're about the same spot.
Same spot.
Same spot. Usually a couple weeks in, 2-3 weeks in, we're at 80%. So I haven't hit the messaging as much as I typically do. I've had a couple projects that I'm working on, so I haven't pushed as many messages out as I have before. So I need to do that a little more. But yeah, I mean, we're basically about the same place we were last year.
So if I'm a parent that submitted an application or submitted a registration, I should have submitted the registration, any appropriate documentation that's requested, and paid the fees. And then how do I know when my registration has been submitted completely?
So that's one thing. We opened registration on the 15th of July, but our processors, their first day back was, most of our processors, their first day back is today. So that's when the office professionals go back in. So existing applications that have no changes get processed in a batch. So every few days, those get processed in batch. Actually, it's probably about every day. I know we have 2 or 3 people that are working on those prior to today. But applications that have address changes, any major changes, those get processed manually. So those will start happening more now that all our processors are back. But that's three more processors back in the building as of today.
And so when they're processed, will the parents get like a confirmation message?
Yep, so if they're new, they get a portal activation message. If they're existing, they'll just get your application has been processed. So the pay side is completely separate. It's fees get applied based on enrollment. So that's not automatic, especially for new students. Those fees get added after the fact through the fee wizard. So existing families, the fees are already sitting there ready to be paid, but new families, those will be added later.
So we need to just keep encouraging everybody to register. If you haven't registered your children, it's going to register.
Sooner we register, the sooner we have class lists. That's what people are anxious about, so, okay. And then just for questions regarding registration, what's the best resource for those folks? Is it the central office? Is it the secretaries? Where do you want to send people?
I'd say the central office is probably the first stop, but then secretaries, if it's more of a building question, call the building.
Okay.
So yeah, central office is a kind of a one-stop if they have a specific issue, but if it's building related, I would point those towards the building.
Have we done any recent communication out for move-ins, preschool parents, whatnot, as the procedures? Or has that been a while? Maybe we need a reminder out there.
As to what?
How to register.
How to register.
Who to call.
That was the initial push of social media. I don't know, Brandon usually puts out signs. I don't know, are the signs out right now? And I drove by there every day, I haven't paid attention. So I know we have some signs that get thrown out every year because they're not year specific.
Just looking on Facebook, I've seen some questions from move-ins and whatnot, so we must not have a good communication method that they're finding it.
Yeah, and at preschool, I'd have to throw that over to Mr.
Yeah, I
Burke.
mean, if they're new to this entire process, yeah, that's basically, other than the social media presence that we've advertised it out on, that's how it's kind of a word of mouth thing, because we don't even know who necessarily some of our new preschool people are and where they're coming from. So we've had a couple of inquiries today. Currently, we have a wait list. We are where we need to be. So until we know what the August 7th date is for current people that have paid their registration and have their spot in line, if they decide to not be a part of it anymore, then we can create space for those people on the wait list. But as of right now, we have a wait list for preschool. I think some people just assume that it's just open and they can just get in. We have a certain amount of staffing, certain amount of spots. And preschool is kind of like the Black Friday for education. They try to keep, it's a hot issue to get a hold of. So, but everybody else, TK through 5 or whatever, they've been communicated to that registration is open. And we'll send out another reminder this week through Infinite Campus, through socials, and again on my announcements on Friday.
But my concern is if you're a move-in, you don't have Infinite Campus, you don't have, unless you happen to see it on social media.
Well, if you're a move-in, your first initial step's going to be to come to central office anyway. If you were going to Johnston, DCG, WG, your initial should be to seek out central office.
Yep, and we have that on the website. It says new, go to central office. The only preschool gets to go past that. So preschool gets sent the online link directly. So, and that's based on pre-registration. So anytime we pre-register, I think it was February this year, pre-registered, and then the direct link for registration is sent out through the email that they gave us during pre-registration. They don't have to come on site because they've already been here. Everybody else is directed to stop in the central office because we have to do address verification, the other required documents. So that's just kind of the process right now. Is everybody new has to go through the central office except for if you're preschool. And if you're preschool, you only get the link based on if you pre-registered.
We've had a lot of new families stopping there. Yes, we have.
Because we're doing great things.
Well, and I think that they're getting that information somehow. I don't know.
But that goes to my concern. Are we in control of that message, or is it just word of mouth, or?
I think it's on the website. I think, without knowing who to target a message to, as long as it's clear direction on the website, I think that that's probably going to be the best case scenario.
Yep, and it was pushed the same way out on social media. There's two options. You're either new or you're existing. And so you click the existing, it points you towards Infinite Campus. If you're new, it points you towards the central office.
Well, I think this is a good.
I'm okay, I just.
Yeah, no,
I'm just questioning, is our
Great.
communication as good
Great
as
point,
it
because
could be?
I think we probably are thinking of the same family that said, hey, I'm new here and I wasn't familiar with some of the activities. I think, as I, prepared to come to Woodward-Granger, and I went to a lot of different websites to figure out, hey, when is Woodward Family and Neighbors Day, and when is Granger Day, and all those things that somebody new to an area wants to know about. I think the website is where you get that information, which leads into a great segue to just a small update on the website, because I know you had a meeting because I was in there with you. And I think we've had conversations that as an administrative group, when we're going to inform, we're going to use certain vehicles of information, not a Facebook page or a tweet as a primary source for information, because I think we need to be more predictable about where families can go to get information about us. And I think the website is the answer to your question tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cody.
And that's we do have that there. So for if their first location right now is to go to the website, that the registration is there. As far as the new, we're looking to launch the new site right now. I haven't had a chance to check. Sometime this week we're going to get the mock-up. So I'll pass that out to you guys as soon as I get the mock-up, just to see what the new look is going to be. We get, I can't remember if it's 2 revisions or 1 revision, and They were just kind of guaranteeing we like it right off the bat, so I'll go with that. We'll see. But it's kind of aggressive timeline, and Matt's not here, but it's going to have heavy ties into our school, so that we can kind of make that calendar, the one calendar, make it look a little better than it is right now. It's going to we're going to change up the newsletter. The newsletter will go through there. We can post, it'll be more blog style. So when the event happens, we can post events as they happen versus a month later, 2 months later. It's going to have strong social ties to be able to push directly out to social media. So just some of the things we were looking at to kind of tie the social media and the website together. It's going to have those. It's going to have some visual aspects to the social media side too. So we're just kind of looking through. Right now, they also through the meeting they were looking through what's the need, kind of cleaning up, weeding through stuff that is not needed. So policies, handbooks, certain items that are better ways to display those too. So better ways to sort through. I have a kid in middle school, elementary. I want to see the handbooks and policies for those two buildings. It'll just funnel them down. So there's some exciting pieces that will be coming, but the aggressive timeline right now leads somewhere the first or second week in September. So probably looking at the second Monday in September.
That's awesome.
Good question, Dave.
Do it, go for it.
No, I'm good.
Put it out there. I'm fine.
Well, I'm just wondering if that soon into the school year is the time to make a major shift on the website as to opposed to a little less aggressive.
So they,
I mean, if we're sure it's got all the information and they can find it, okay, but if it's going to be fumble to find, now it's all changed, I can't find anything.
So
beginning of the year is not the best idea.
It's going to be highly searchable, highly sortable. Those are the two things they're keying in on. So kind of being able to filter and look for the things you need. Everything that's going to be kind of right there, need to know, is going to be front and center. We did hold them back because they wanted to launch. Originally, they wanted to launch like the first day, and I'm like, no, that can't happen. There's some pieces and we have control of that. So as we start to get, once the mock-up's done, we'll start to be able to see what the site's going to actually look like and how it's going to function. So I will be able to hand that off to you and say, here's what those, finding the news, finding the policies, finding the different pieces is going to look like going forward. I think looking at it right now, it's going to be easier to find things than what is currently there. So even though you kind of know where things are at right now, it's going to be easier to find them on the new. So we can hold them off. There is selfishly, there's a piece, and I don't know if Jamie talked about it to Matt though. There's a conference scheduling app built into and they've always had one, and it ties nicely to your teachers. They were talking about integrating it with, if we have to go virtual. I mean, it's too bad, some schools are using it right now for the virtual parent nights. Now would be nice if we had it, but we don't. So we can't do it for a virtual parent night, but we might be able to do it for a virtual parent-teacher conference where he talked about possibly integrating Zoom or Google Meet right into it so that it'll just schedule both and the parent can jump on a meeting. So we don't know what parent-teacher conferences are going to look like yet, but that's something to keep in mind when we get there. And they already had a product they used, and I didn't want to throw out the product they used, but if we had it on a timeline that they could use it, then we might as well.
Will we only get one mock-up before it goes live, or will we have a revision?
He said there was going to be kind of a back and forth. So
I guess to allay my concerns and fears would be when we do get the ready-to-go version, we need to have a group test it till the nth degree, find the problems before we let the public get frustrated with problems.
Yep, I can reach out to him on that. I mean, the first mock-up is there's just the design. So the one we're going to get this week is just straight up design. It's not going to be functional. I think a week from now, then it would be, they'd start to have some functional pieces. So I can ask him the exact time frame of when we'd be able to have hands-on to see how it functions, and then ask them. Once they get into that phase, I think there is some tweaking we can do. Well, this isn't doing sorting right. We need to fix that. So there is back and forth on that.
Dave wants.
I trust you.
Dave wants some quality control time.
Yeah.
Well, websites,
Yeah,
a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
I know I get frustrated when I get on the site and I can't get around it. I just leave.
And they have a couple other schools in our conference, if you want to look at it. They have Ogden and they have Pleasantville. We're trying to make ours unique, so they stand out a little bit from theirs. But those, I would say a lot of the people on their sites, some put a lot and some put a little. So it's, you can go to a couple different, I think one they just launched was Southwest Valley as well. So there's a couple sites out there that you can look at to kind of see what does their product do, how can you sort. But some of the things that they were wanting to do to ours, like the search and the sort, aren't even on some of the sites that they were showing. So
I've used Ogden's and it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, I think Ogden's just launched about 3 months ago. Pleasantville's had theirs for close to a year. Southwest Valley, I think, just recently.
I sat in the meeting with Cody, and I concur with what Cody's saying. It's going to be easier. It was amazing within that short period of time how they've reorganized it in their mind and shared it with us, and I was like, that makes sense compared to what we have now. I think you're going to find that it's probably more user-friendly than what we currently have.
So
I mean, we may develop
Our
a scavenger
current-
hunt for you.
yeah,
and that'll be
our current
test.
site frustrates me sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I know my way around websites fairly well, so. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Close to you. All right, should we move on to the action agenda?
You bet. So under safety equipment, and I think I will turn it over to Luke, he can speak more intelligently about this. This should be a familiar agenda item. A year ago, this is an opportunity where we look at just the safety equipment, like football helmets, reconditioning, and some of those things. You might recall a year ago, Matt was here to talk about it. He's on vacation. Luke, anything you want to add?
Yeah, this was, I think, almost 19,000 last year. It's a lot. It's a lot less this year.
I'm directing traffic,
Yeah.
sorry.
There was some new safety measures put into place for baseball, so the catchers had to get new equipment, which was about $2,000. $4,000 in helmet repair for middle school and high school. There was a few helmets that were not even able to repair, so those had to be just completely replaced. There's every year the volleyball knee pads, and let's see what else is normal. There's some new baseball helmets, mouth guards, which is on there every year. But so that's the majority. The thing that came with baseball this year, there was $800 worth of thermometers that was required. Some of that can be used. We can spend that back with some of the CARES money once we make this transfer. So that can get taken out of that money. So
That will be true all year for all the sports seasons.
Well,
Since we don't know guidelines yet on some of the sports, whether we need to buy
right.
other COVID related.
I mean, there's $36,000. So, I mean, that'll go quick but I mean, these thermometers will be able to use, I mean,
We'll be able to put them in the nurse's office. I mean, we'll be able to reuse
Yeah.
them, so to speak,
Yeah.
in our educational setting too, so.
I move the WG Board of Education approve the transfer of funds from the general fund to student activity funds for expenditures made in the amount of $14,908.61 for athletic safety and protective care per Iowa Code 298 Alpha .8.
Second.
A motion by Tim, seconded by Troy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, second reading of policies.
So you should have a polished version. We talked about these last 2 weeks ago. There's two specific policies that I want to talk about tonight. The first one would be Roman numeral 11, which is 501.9E1, request for remote learning form. You heard all of the principals talk a little bit tonight about that particular choice that a family can make in the governor's proclamation. If you recall, there was kind of A through E conditions which you could do remote, and A was parent request. I did take out the part of the policy that talked about a doctor's note. Remote learning is available to anybody. You don't need a doctor's note or ground that decision within a doctor's recommendation or care. You'll also know notice in that policy that it's a commitment for the first semester. And I think you heard Rob talk a little bit about that. I couldn't agree more. I think we're going to make some personnel decisions. I think we're going to look at our resources and move them around in order to support all of our learners. And so when we make a commitment like that, the remote learning would be through first semester. We are asking tonight is second reading, immediate implementation. We kind of hinted around about this 2 weeks ago. I think Matt shared this in his announcements. I see the window for this being tonight to Friday, August 7th, this week. One of the stipulations is you have to have a conversation with the principal. The principal needs to sign off on it as well as the parent. A little bit of a formality. They're not going to judge it and say, no, you can't have it. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a conversation about what does remote learning really look like and what you can expect, and what the commitment level is to this. As I went through the policy, and Ashley, you and I kind of talked about it, this isn't a now or never sort of a policy. This could be something where a family gets into September, October, and their circumstances change, and they could, my word, apply for remote learning at that time, again, committing till the end of the semester. So that's policy 501.9E1, remote learning request.
So just a couple points of clarification on that. If we approve today, goes into effect immediately. Johnny's family says, yep, I want to participate. They get the application, they submit it to their building principal.
Yeah, I'd like for them to make a connection to the building
Yep,
principal.
so
I want a dialogue. I want a conversation. So everybody knows what they've signed up for, so to speak.
So submit it to the building principal schedules some time to
Yep.
chat with them, ensure that they have a full understanding of what remote learning looks like.
Right.
Everybody signs off on it and agrees through the end of the semester, unless the governor declares that the public emergency is
Thank you.
dismissed.
I meant to say that as well.
Yeah.
Or the proclamations expires.
Yes, so that's one point I just want to make sure everyone's
Thank you.
aware of. Is
Yes.
If the governor says COVID's done, or whatever that looks like, that will mean that they are then expected to come back to
Expect to
class.
come back to class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thinking ahead, not related to tonight's vote, but we need to be thinking about a deadline for if they want to request coming back live at semester for planning purposes,
Sure.
scheduling, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think obviously there's going to be some mechanism, depending on is the proclamation still going, depending on just the landscape, absolutely. It might be, hey, I'm extending this even. So obviously there's going to have to be some kind of a conversation. With that, I would say right after Thanksgiving at some point. I think they should probably have conversations, principals reaching out to those families and saying, we're a couple, 3 weeks away, evaluate the situation, and it's either welcome back or continue to extend that. Absolutely. Good point.
Do we know what the demand is right now?
Well, to be frank, I've only heard one. I don't think, I think Matt shared it during his morning announcements, and I don't think you really received any. I threw out 15% because I was hearing that across just different districts. I don't see it being 15%, but that seemed like a reasonable number. I think we'll know within the next couple of days. I think, the parents that are watching, and word will get out. I'll actually put some correspondence out after the board meeting that this is the route we're going, and I'm sure then the next few days we'll kind of know, and I'll throw something in my Friday bulletin, let you know where we're at. The other board policy that I would point out to you is policy, it looks like number 9, let me do my little Roman numerals here, looks like 14 and then 15. So one change that I made, and I'll be real frank with you, I think the governor made the change for us in terms of the process for canceling school. It's almost like my words, an application process. And so some metrics came out last Thursday. If your county meets those metrics, you need to have a conversation with the Iowa Department of Public Health. And then I need to go into the CASA system and apply to close the school for 14 days based on my conversation with the Iowa Department of Health. And so on board policy 907 and 907R1, I changed the language a little bit to say that the superintendent has the authority for the first 14 days. It would be awful clunky. And I'm just, Kendra and I had a little bit of a talk about this. The Department of Ed will respond within 48 hours of this request. So I'm thinking of, if you look at those metrics, and I think it's clunky enough. I'll let you know if we hit those metrics and that I've applied for us to close for 14 days based on those metrics. I think there's plenty of cooks in the kitchen already as it relates to this. I'm very disappointed that a request, when you look at the metrics that would qualify for a closure, I don't think we should be waiting 48 hours to make that closure. But that's right now, again, right now it looks like 7:35 is what the rule is. So I'll keep you updated on that. But that's why I changed 907.
Did I misunderstand you? Did you say it's at the county level, not at our district level?
The county level is going to give us the metric. So for instance, and I really appreciate this from Dallas. Yeah, so right now we are at 6.28%. So the county Department of Health will give us the metric. We'll contact the Iowa Department of Public Health to kind of process where do we go from here. When I get the green light from them, I'll go into the Department of Ed. It's called the CASA system, and I will, my words, apply for closure based on that conversation.
And we follow Dallas County.
Dallas County, yeah. And I want to get a little clarification with that. When we've got a little bit of Polk and a little bit of Boone. There's still some clarification needed on the driver for the county. So, but right now, Dallas is where clearly we've been kind of anchoring our conversations. The other part of 907.R1 is I did include masks. So there's a spot in there that talks about mitigation strategies. If you recall, I talked about outside agencies, or excuse me, outside renters that use our facilities will bring their own stuff. So we have enough chemicals and what we need for our own school use. I shared that with you last week. I also went ahead and put in that masks will be required for all adults, all students. And I even put, not that we're going to limit them, but I even put visitors and volunteers. And I did that on purpose because I want to make sure that we have policy to stand behind in the event that we do use those folks. And I also wanted to point it out today, we received a number of calls at central office asking where is the mask opt-out form. There isn't a mask opt-out form. You did hear Mr. Bruman talk a little bit about it. I think there'll be some decisions made for some students that would be anchored in maybe a health plan and included in a health plan in order to kind of opt out. But in terms of how we're moving forward, masks will be required from adults and students. I just wanted to make that clear. I was a little surprised when Brandy and Taylor said this morning that we received a handful of calls asking about that. So it's an urban legend, the mask opt-out form. It doesn't exist. I'd be happy to answer any other questions with policies, but those were two that I wanted to kind of share publicly and make sure that we had clarity around.
And just to confirm, you said that you're going to send out a communication after this meeting, if it's passed, about opting into virtual
Yep.
classes, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll move the WG Board of Education approve.
We got to see them.
Dave's going.
Okay.
Approve the second reading of board policies 409.1, 409.2, 409.2E1, 409.2E2, 409.3, 409.3E1, 409.3E2, 409.3R1, 409.3R2, 501.9, 509E1, 601.2, 604.11, 907, 907R1 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I would just reiterate it, again, it's not an hour never when I say August 7th, but I think we need to know the lion's share of families that are going to choose that, so principals have time to kind of organize their personnel. But it's not an hour never.
It's just a very serious ask.
It's a very serious ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions on the consent agenda?
I move that WG Board of Education approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Tim, seconded by Troy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. Next meeting here on August 17th, unless we need to meet before then for whatever reason. Anything else? Anybody else have anything? Okay, we just need a motion to adjourn.
I move that the meeting adjourn at 7:39 PM.
Second.
Motion by Tim, seconded by Dave and Sam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.